Hi everyone, I'm Ren, and today I would like to tell you about my experience with misophonia. Most of you will probably hear about it for the first time. So, what is exactly misophonia? Well, the articles on the web mostly will tell you it's a hatred of sounds, but sadly it is so much more than just hatred. Misophonia is about neuron connections in a brain that, for it unknown reason, take the sounds and sight of another human eating food as a threat. And what happens when one's life is threatened? Your fight or flight response gets activated, which is a psychological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat to survival. And that's what makes misophonia so hard to live with. It's a reaction that is out of our own control because of how primordial it is for our organisms. Now, how living with misophonia looks like? You see, I got my first symptoms of misophonia when I was just a kid, maybe 9 or 10 years old. I can't remember what exactly triggered it, but at some point I stopped eating together at the table with my family because I couldn't stand the noises of chewing food and the sound of cutlery. It worsened when I went to middle school. There were students eating their lunch or chewing gum in the school halls, and I had to strategically avoid those triggers. Once I went to high school, my triggers expanded to also visual triggers unrelated to eating. I couldn't stand the sight of people waving or moving their legs in a repeated movement. This made me unable to focus on learning at school because through the whole class I was trying to look away from students chewing gum or waving their legs. Eventually, I got individual classes for the last remaining 3 years of my education. Thanks to it, I could focus on classes and finish school because I was one-on-one with teachers and I could sit alone in a classroom during lunch breaks. However, my struggles didn't end just at school. Once I was going back home by bus, I always looked out for people who were entering the bus with some food, so I could sit as further away from them as possible. Sadly, not always I could avoid someone pulling out food while sitting next to me. In such a scenario, the earphones I always have with myself wouldn't be enough to help me endure the bus trip. I had to either look away through the window, close one of my eyes, or try to hide the view with my hair. Now, coming back home meant living with parents and my older brother who would refuse to understand my issue. I remember my dad claiming I am making it up and overreacting and always getting angry at me whenever I would gently ask him to not eat when I was near. Thankfully, one time I took both of my parents to my psychologist who treated my issue seriously. She explained to my parents that misophonia is a real thing. Since then, I stopped hearing that I'm making it up, but that still didn't make my family respect my issue. My mom often would try to sneak in some candy or gum next to me, thinking I won't notice it. Of course, I always do notice and always get triggered by it. Then there's my brother, who simply refuses to stop eating near me, even if I ask kindly. I remember one time I fell asleep in the living room, where my brother would come to watch TV as he ate some food. I woke up abruptly because of the chewing sounds and had to leave the room in panic. Nowadays I live by myself and make a living off of art commissions, which makes my life finally more calm and I don't get triggered that often. Although I am still not completely safe from triggers. Sometimes even reaction gifs trigger me. For example, eating popcorn gifs. Also, watching dinner scenes in movies and TV series is tough as well. I usually try to just stomach it or cover my eyes to barely see the characters chewing food. And when I go into voice chats, I need to ask my friends to mute themselves if they are eating anything, which I always feel guilty about. There's one thing about my experience that is kinda lucky though. You see, whenever I go to see my friends, go out with someone that I feel safe with, and I am having a good time, Suddenly misophonia is gone. I could eat pizza with my friends and it would not trigger me. My theory about it is that whenever I'm with people whose presence I enjoy, I do not feel threatened. And if there is no threat, misophonia is not awoken. It of course doesn't last forever. As soon as someone is visiting me for longer than a week or two, my triggers slowly start to reappear. But thankfully, it is something that resets with each visit. I gotta say, I feel lucky I can work remotely and make money doing something I like. Having to go to some workplace where people eat lunch, chew gum, wave their legs, it would be unbearable. There is no way I could do my job properly or focus on tasks. As of now, there is no cure nor a therapy that would minimize the severity of misophonia triggers. You could think that exposure to triggers could work, but that was already tested and proven to be not working. Imagine you encounter a wild animal, let's say a bear. No matter how many times you encounter it, you're going to feel tense and threatened. Keep in mind, this is only my story. Each person with misophonia might have different experiences and different triggers. For example, someone might not stand someone's loud breath or snoring, but the food chewing trigger is usually the first sign of misophonia. Also, misophonia isn't always about just fleeing and avoiding the triggers. Some people that suffer from it also tend to imagine violent things happening to the people who are triggering them. It is the fight part of the response, which might bring someone with misophonia some kind of a temporary relief. Because no one normal in a social setting is gonna ask a stranger to just stop eating or waving their leg. So one might just imagine chopping someone's leg off. One time though, I went out of control and I accidentally hit my mom. She took a cake into her mouth, right in front of my face, without any warning. My hand slapped her cheek and I was so shocked by what I just did that I had to run to my room. This was my body's reaction to a trigger and not something I thought through or intended to do. And this only shows how severe misophonia can be. That being said, thank you for listening, and I hope this video will spread more awareness about misophonia. Please respect your friends and family who suffer from it, because every day is a struggle to us. Goodbye for now.